Hi, I'm Dr. Thais Aliabadi. For over 25 years, as an OBGYN, I've helped countless women navigate the challenges of PCOS. I created OV to bring you a scientifically backed solution that supports the symptoms of PCOS with powerful ingredients. OV supports hormone balance, body composition, metabolic support, and beauty from within, giving you a comprehensive approach to supporting your health. It's more than just a supplement. It's a product born from decades of experience and a deep commitment to women's health. Visit OV.com to learn more and start your journey to better health today. That's OVII.com.
Well, I am so excited today because there's so many reasons that I'm excited. One of them is that I get to talk to one of my really close friends, Embeth Davidtz, who at almost 60 has created a second mountain for herself. She actually wrote, starred in, and directed her first movie. Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight opens in New York and LA July 11th. And it is magical and brilliant, just like the filmmaker that made it. So thank you for coming and sharing your story and just
you.
being who you are. And I'm just going to read some things for you. So Variety praised Davids's debut as a masterclass in storytelling, and The Hollywood Reporter called the film near perfection. It's getting just accolades everywhere. In your previous career, you were also an incredible actress. Schindler's List is one of the ones that I remember the most.
I love that movie.
The most beautiful movie,
Yeah.
and you were incredible in that.
Thank you.
But one stuck out with me the most, which was Ray Donovan. And I had been watching Ray Donovan, and I knew you, but we hadn't become good friends yet. And there was a scene where you take your shirt off and you've had a mastectomy and you have not had a breast implant in there, and you literally showed your mastectomy from. Can we just start there?
Yes, sure. That was actually a really interesting moment of sort of life and art coming together. So I was partially reconstructed. I'd had the mastectomy, I had the implants, but the right side, I had not had a nipple reconstruction done yet. So there was a very flagrant scar across the right breast. And the director, really interesting showrunner and director, said, we're looking for an angle with this. We want there to be something with this character, some strange background, something physical. There's something very sexual with the Ray Donovan character. How can we merge these two worlds? He said, there would be nudity. It's a sexual thing we're trying to pinpoint. And I said, well, just so you know, I have one nipple. I said, I'm partially reconstructed. And he said, my God, we're pursuing a breast cancer angle in the film. Like the one character, the wife of Ray Donovan, actually ends up having breast cancer. He said, so if we could weave that in, I just said, look, I'm only going to look like this for a while. We could put a fake nipple on, or we can actually use it and make it part of this story, which is what we ended up doing.
It was incredible. It was so brave. And so I just remember, because you played this very sexy, sexual character.
That was part of the reason.
Yeah.
I thought
got chills.
she looked fabulous. They had me in Celine, and they had me in every tight, fabulous dress and really sharp hair and Tom Ford. And the idea was that you get to know her. She also owns a gallery. So she's this gallerist, and she's obsessed with art. And I said, a woman who's had this happen in her life is still a sexual woman. A woman who's partially reconstructed or fully reconstructed or not reconstructed is still a sexual, beautiful woman. So let's show that in the story, which we did. And it caused a bit of a stir in a good way, and it caused a lot of conversation. So I'm really happy that I did it.
It was amazing. Can we talk about your breast cancer?
Sure.
How old were you when you were diagnosed? And can walk us through, and then Dr. A will talk about the medicine of it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what Dr. A thinks about this. So I was very regularly doing mammograms once a year. I was 47 and had had a mammogram 11 months before when I didn't really do self-checks. Because my breasts were so tiny. I used to call them ballet boobs and sort of post-breastfeeding. But I had a cold, and I was lying down, and I was resting my pinky here, and I felt this really hard lump. And when I went to figure out what it was, it ended up being that big. It was 3.5 centimeters
That you
big.
could feel.
I could feel it. I was like, this is unbelievable. I must have an enormous blockage or cyst or something. I had breastfed the kids and always had very high prolactin, very high estrogen levels. So I thought I better go and get it checked out. And I really thought it was just going to be oh gosh, we have to drain that with a needle, because I'd had the mammogram 11 months earlier and an ultrasound, and my life fell apart. I had a very aggressive, triple positive, 3.5 centimeter tumor.
Was it a ductal carcinoma or lobular?
Ductal,
Okay.
invasive. Ductal.
Invasive ductal.
Yeah.
And you have family history of it?
My mother had breast cancer at 60-something, ductal carcinoma, in situ, but still the beginnings of.
The same kind of cancer?
Yeah, it's the same, but this lifetime risk out, the Tyrer-Cuzick formula that I've used for years now on my patients should have been used on you. And the way it works is everyone should know their lifetime risk of breast cancer at 30. With a family history of breast cancer, when you're tall, when you have dense breasts, when you have children after 30, when you have family history, if you have a genetic mutation, if you're Ashkenazi, if your periods, all of it will affect your lifetime risk of breast cancer.
Wow.
So you didn't smoke, didn't do drugs, didn't drink alcohol, was never overweight. I didn't do hormones, but my lifetime risk was 37%. You need to know what that number is. Your number with a first degree relative with breast cancer would have been in the vicinity at least of 20%, not knowing your DNA markers. So someone like you should have had regular breast MRIs in addition to mammogram and ultrasound. Anyone with a lifetime risk of 20% or more gets additional imaging with MRI. Why is that important? Mammograms pick up only 4 out of 5 cancers. So 80% of cancers are diagnosed on mammogram, but the other 20% get missed. Now, let's hold it right here. Of those 80%, you still need to use the right machine with the right radiologist.
Yeah.
What does that mean? For 50% of women walk around with dense breast tissue. This is an imaging finding.
It doesn't mean you have, you could have dense breasts and have your little ballet
Yes,
boobs.
totally. I had dense breasts. As
Right.
little breast tissue as I had.
So if you have dense breasts and you get a 2D mammogram is like an X-ray, two-dimensional X-ray of your breast. Because of the dense breast tissue, when you look at the images, you just see just white shadows. So the radiologist looks at it and is like, well, I can't really see anything, but from what I see, you don't have cancer. But that doesn't mean anything. Someone with dense breast tissue, I don't care how small or how big your breasts are, you have to ask for a 3D mammogram. Why is that important? Because 3D mammograms, it's like flipping through the pages of a book. Instead of looking at a two-dimensional view that's all white, you look page by page, layer by layer, and you can see everything. So that's number one thing you needed.
So just ask for that. If you have a high lifetime risk, ask for that.
Right. Now there's the second generation of these 3D mammograms that's released, that most hospitals have it. Using the right mammogram device is very important, or mammogram machine. Number two, the radiologist who reads it is very important. Number three, patients with dense breast tissue, in addition to a 3D mammogram, they still need breast ultrasound. Having said that, even with a good mammogram machine, with a good radiologist, with a 3D mammogram and breast ultrasound, when your lifetime risk is 20% or more, you also need an MRI. And I usually alternate them every 6 months so I don't miss anything in my high-risk patients. So had they done an MRI, they would have caught your breast cancer way before stage 3.
That's what I want to ask you, Dr. A. How long was that there?
It's hard to say. Aggressive cancers can go really fast. You had a HER2 positive cancer is a more aggressive. It's a protein on the surface of some of the breast cancer cells that makes it very aggressive. So some cancers are slower growing, some are fast growing. You had a fast growing cancer, so it's hard to predict, but it could have been there 11 months prior, definitely smaller, but it was completely missed because you had a 2D mammogram, dense breast, and they probably missed it. But that's why I keep saying, know your lifetime risk of breast cancer. And if that lifetime risk is 20% or more, you need annual MRIs. If that lifetime risk falls between 15 to 20, You need MRIs every 3 to 5 years, but you have to be your own health advocate and you have to ask for it. Mary Alice just told me she had a friend out of state who listened to our podcast. She had a negative mammogram and ultrasound. She went to her doctor and calculated her lifetime risk of breast cancer on SheMD, went to her doctor and said, I need an MRI. Did the doctor give it to her the first
Finally,
time?
he wouldn't.
He
at
wouldn't.
first. Yeah, she
oh
had
my God.
double mastectomy. Yeah.
So do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she had to push for that MRI, and
Yeah.
that's how her breast cancer was
Yeah.
diagnosed. This is not something rare. It's very common. And I also want to mention that the type of breast cancer you had should have been diagnosed usually on a good 3D mammogram. But the second most common type of breast cancer, which is lobular breast cancer, which comes from the lobules of the breast, some patients have stage 2, 3 lobular breast cancer with a negative mammogram. That's why doing that MRI will pick up these cancers that the mammogram would miss. Doing an ultrasound will pick up these cancer that a mammogram would miss.
So my question would be for women who don't have access or who get told, no, we don't have that. What do they do to get that 3D mammogram or to get the MRI?
What we can do is just educate them, empower them to go ask the right questions. 3D mammograms are covered by insurance. Medi-Cal will pay for you to have a 3D mammogram.
You just have to fight.
You just have to fight to get it
and
because
fight.
doctors don't understand it. You have to fight to get an ultrasound. My patient, I saw her today from out of state. She flew to see me, and one of her concerns was that she had dense breast tissue. And she goes to her doctor. She said, I listened to SheMD podcast. I have dense breast tissue. You need to give me a breast ultrasound. And her doctor told her breast ultrasound is reserved for women in rural areas who have no access to care and who get diagnosed later. So we use ultrasound to stage them.
Which is just
complete nonsense.
Complete and utter
nonsense.
bullshit.
Wow.
So it's just empowering patients to be their own health advocate is step one. In order to be your own health advocate, you need to be knowledgeable. You need to have the education. That's why educate yourself. You would have asked at 35 that you needed an MRI.
I didn't even know that calculating ability was there.
I didn't either until I met Dr. A. And then, when she saved Olivia Munn's life with breast cancer and it came out. And I think now it's really starting. I have a question because her daughter is one of my favorite people in the entire world. She has to be sitting right over there. I wish everyone could see her. But I'm going to use you as an example. So she's 22 and her mother has breast cancer and her grandmother has breast cancer. So what does she do? What as a mom should you do?
Very good point. First of all, 22 is too young to talk about breast cancer, to screen her. There's no need to panic. At 25, if she walks into my office, at 25, I will do genetic testing on her. And the genetic testing that I do in my office is MyRisk. And the reason I like it, it's from a company, the company is Myriad. The test is called MyRisk. It gives me 3 information. Number 1, it will check her DNA for 48 cancer-causing genes. I'll check that off. Number 2, first of all, she qualifies because 2 family members with breast cancer. The second information I get from the MyRisk test is her Tyrer-Cuzick, which I calculate in my office anyways, which is the formula. Lifetime risk of breast cancer. I will calculate that, but they will do it again for us. And I always compare the 2 numbers. And number 3, the most important thing, information they give me, in addition to the genetic mutations, they look in her DNA for little tiny markers. These are individual markers that by themselves, they don't have power, but some women walk around with tons of these little tiny markers. And if she's one of them, then it'll push her lifetime risk of breast cancer significantly higher. So it's the Tyrer-Cuzick plus these little tiny markers that will give me a risk score. And I look at that risk score. If that risk score or the Tyrer-Cuzick, whichever one is higher, is 20% or more, I will start breast imaging in her at age 30, and I will supplement it with breast MRI. So I get ready at 25 and I tell them, if I'm not here, if I'm not your doctor, if you're in another country, you need to start at 30. And then I talk about risk reduction, right? For someone who has a high lifetime risk, you have to talk to them about alcohol use, smoking, eating, lowering processed
Is
food.
birth control, is the birth control pill?
No,
We
birth
love
control.
this question though, because it gets asked a lot. This is a really
Yes,
good
birth
question.
control pills are very, very safe.
Doesn't contribute to breast
No,
cancer.
but if I understand there's a lot of anxiety about estrogen around breast cancer. And if you're worried, you can, for girls with family history, you can do progesterone only, or you can do IUDs. I love IUDs. They're more local, they're not systemic, but birth control pills do not cause breast cancer. I mean, there's some studies that associate long-term use with it, but it's not really a risk factor. There's so many other things we do in life that, is a risk factor. Having dense breast tissue is a risk factor, so having children after 30 is a risk factor. So there's so many risk factors, but you need to know what that number is, because supplementing with MRI will save a lot of lives when indicated.
So, Embeth, you've also been really vocal about, how, like what you just said, that taking that role and saying, your life doesn't end when you get breast cancer. It doesn't end when you hit menopause. It doesn't. But I ask Dr. A this question all the time because she also had breast cancer and a type of breast cancer that you can't take hormone replacement. Did you feel that way? Like after you had breast cancer, and did it put you into menopause?
Yeah, honestly, I remember having my first hot flash at the end of my first round of chemo. So by the time I emerged from the fog of a first round of chemo, I remember this feeling coming over me, I was just like, what is going on? This temperature just went up and up, and that was the first hot flash, which I guess was the beginning of my ovaries sort of saying we're failing, which they hadn't been anywhere near doing. So I had all the symptoms. I've dealt with the symptoms of menopause. Veoza was an amazing drug that I've introduced into my life that has at least helped the hot flashes so I can sleep better. That helped me a lot. But the rest of it, I have had to white knuckle. And there's a lot of conversation around, well, you're this far out, you're 13 years out. You had a very HER2-driven cancer. Possibly you could consider, I'm just too frightened of taking any hormones. I don't want to risk anything. But the things that I did to supplement what I couldn't do is my diet is really, really, I'm very careful with my diet. I try not to drink alcohol. I pick up very heavy weights because I'm worried about my bones and I'm worried about just my strength in general. And I think that all of the other things that I put in place in my life, meditation, being outside, really taking care of myself, that those are the things that I put around myself as a fortress, protecting my sleep to make me able to, at almost 60, direct a film, because it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I always look around at women who either are on hormones or women who didn't have breast cancer. Everybody's on hormones that I know that hasn't had breast cancer. And I feel like, God, I'm at such a disadvantage. So I have to work that much harder to just get to baseline where other people can exist,
You feel the same way.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I think when you get diagnosed with breast cancer, there's such fear in you that you don't want to risk anything.
Yeah.
So I'm just like you. I would never risk it. Now, let's talk about this. Some women have triple negative breast cancer, meaning they don't have estrogen or progesterone receptors on their breast cancer. Those patients can take hormone replacement, and it's absolutely safe for them. But for women like us with estrogen receptor positive, progesterone positive, you have to be a little bit more careful because you don't want to fuel anything. That's why they put us on estrogen blockers for 5 to 10 years after your breast cancer treatment. So you don't want to do the opposite. Now, but there are certain things we do to help patients with their symptoms of menopause. Obviously, nothing ever will replace hormone replacement. I think the fatigue was just exhausting coming from the side effect of all these medications. The brain fog is huge, and there's really not much you can do about it. I would call my neurologist. I'm like, I think I have Alzheimer's. She's like,
my husband says that to me right now, too.
I know.
I'm
So
like,
yes, it's that's such a huge thing because you're a smart woman, Dr.
Yeah.
A. So when you feel that that's taken away from you or that's compromised, that's a really difficult thing to lose.
It's very difficult. But you know what? I had so much gratitude for having caught my cancer so early and having saved my own life fighting the system, that no symptom, I was not ready to go down with any symptoms, but I have had all of it. I think talking about hot flashes, There's prescription medications, non-hormonal, FDA approved that patients can take to alleviate their symptoms. I mean, there's some SSRIs you can take, Effexor, you can take Paxil. We usually don't give that with tamoxifen, but you can take Lexapro or Celexa. These are anxiety medications, but they do help with symptoms of hot flashes. You can use gabapentin for hot flashes. So there are other medications you can use. For hair loss, I give minoxidil to my patients, which isn't, it's like the Rogaine in a form of pill. It's compounded. You can also use the topical form for hair loss. I think, for weight gain, obviously, there's so many medications. For bone loss, we do medications that are injectables, Evenity, Prolia. There's so many other medications.
Should I be doing that? Because I pick up really heavy weights and I do it 3 times a week. But I went from having incredibly dense bones. I remember having a bone density test shortly before I was diagnosed. And in those I heard that the first
5 years,
and it sucked the calcium out of my bones, and then I have osteopenia. So it
depends on where you are and how much you've lost. Unfortunately, insurance companies will not cover your medications unless you have osteoporosis. So it has to be an out-of-pocket cost for a lot of patients. But there are daily injectables like Forteo or Tymlos that you can try. But if it's mild osteopenia, I would say still exercise. But if you constantly see a decline, you can absolutely use these meds. Then I think one of the worst symptoms I personally experienced besides the hot flashes was vaginal dryness. Vaginal dryness on medications like aromatase inhibitors or the tamoxifen, the estrogen blockers they put you on for like 5 to 10 years. It was shocking.
But you can use vaginal estrogen.
So yes, and you're allowed
when you have
with
cancer,
with
hot flashes.
As I'm talking about hot flashes. So what I would say is, first of all, if you're getting treated during treatment, I try to avoid it because small amounts still can get absorbed. So in those cases, I always get clearance from their oncologist. But again, for triple negative patients, it's not an issue. For other women, once their therapy is done, you can absolutely use vaginal estrogen. Usually the cream forms, they cover more area and they have a higher likelihood of having some of it get absorbed. So I stick with the Vagifem, the pill form, for example, or the estrogen ring that you can put in the vagina for 3 months, 90 days, and you can replace it. That's really easy and it helps a lot. There's a Mona Lisa laser that I do in my office. It's a CO2 laser of the vagina that makes a huge difference for women. Hyaluronic acid suppositories can help. Vitamin E suppositories can help, or a combination of all of these can help.
I have done all the above.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say in front of my daughter, who's probably embarrassed that I brought that up, that it works. It really does make a difference. Yeah.
But
I heard it's also, one wants to do that to prevent bladder infections down the line, right?
So as we get dry and as the estrogen levels start growing down, the tissue becomes more atrophic, even on the outside, around the vulva and around the urethra, right? So the urethral orifice loses its elasticity.
So you get bacteria.
Especially after sex or after, spinning classes. This bacteria from around the anus can go all the way up the urethra. So that's why it's important to pee before and after sex. But sometimes if you do all that and you keep yourself hydrated, you can still get bladder infections very commonly. So, for those patients, I always say they can even use small amounts of the estradiol cream on the outside, like a pea size, around the urethra if they're too scared to use the estrogen cream inside. So that's another way around it.
I feel like I'm not a good sport. I was also in such a deeply grateful state when I survived it. So grateful as I watched these beautiful kids grow up and sort of realized that I'd been given my life back, because it was very scary. There were a couple of months there that we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And gratitude and going into that state, just as a state in life, to live in the mad world we live in, what are the 5 things I'm grateful for today? Really important. But also, I'm not a good sport about the things that didn't feel good. I felt like my smarts was taken away. I felt like my chi, my drive was taken away. I felt like, and so I think the thing to do is anywhere, it's the same as advocating for yourself, anywhere that you can choose what you put in your mouth. You cannot, you don't have to put alcohol in your mouth, which makes you feel worse. I love my drink every now and then. I love to have my tequila when, on the right day, but I don't do it every day. Or the choice to exercise, the choice to keep moving, because all of those things actually, even without hormones, led me to sort of launch probably the most powerful thing in my life that I've done at an age when I think most people would have looked at me and said, you're past it.
Well, we have to talk about this because I'm so excited for you. And I think there were some times, I remember some times that in conversations that I had with you, with some of our other friends, where we do sort of get to this age, in our 50s and our 60s, when people don't expect us to be creative and to be launching the biggest thing that you've ever done. Same thing with me. I created this podcast when I was in my 50s. I mean, nobody thinks that we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we don't even think that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, COVID hit us all really hard. And as women, you had this incredible career as an actress. And then, COVID hits, nobody's doing anything. And it's sort of, what's my next mountain? And this is your next mountain. And it is, so can we talk about that?
So backing up to what you said about we have our children, I really decided I don't want to go away and be gone for 7 months of the year and not raise my children. That was a choice, and it was a choice that many might have said, well, that wasn't a smart career choice. I look around and I see actresses who do that all the time. That can work for people. It didn't work for me. I wanted to stay here. So I stayed home for the children, and then as they were little still is when I got sick. And it was sort of as I emerged from the fog of that, they were young teenagers. And then I really did have to look at myself very hard and ask myself, what is your purpose? Your purpose in life could be, I choose to go twice a week and help rescue animals. That's a meaningful, purposeful life. For me, I'd studied literature at school. I decided a lot of actresses particularly, are finding their own material. And I remembered this book that I had read that had come out in 2003. It had been on the New York Times bestseller list. And I thought, there was a part in that was amazing, the part of the mother. So I went back to the book. And again, it's the thing, part of me did not believe that all these pieces were going to join together and this was going to end up happening. So contacted the author, loved to buy the option, bought the option to the book, sat with the book. How do I put this together? Couldn't find a screenwriter. Thought, okay, what would I do if I were a screenwriter? I've never written a screenplay before.
This is what I'm talking about.
No. And it's sort of what you did. So I didn't think, oh gosh, I know how to write a screenplay. I just thought, what would the story be if I started here and I ended there? And I had to do it. My desktop was littered with many, many drafts, and I write very slowly. It annoys my children how slow I am on a computer, but I sat and I plodded away, and then I'd go away, I'd give it a break, I'd find it overwhelming, I'd go back to it again, continue until finally I got to a point where I went, wow, this is actually in this sort of shape that it could work. This is now, I've read enough screenplays to know this is a screenplay that I think will make a good film. I then couldn't find a director. I actually went out to several male directors who, they didn't get it, they didn't understand. It's a very female-focused film. It's a very female representative film. And so my husband actually said to me, which is great, for him, because he's in disbelief that all of this has ended up happening ultimately.
He's a huge entertainment lawyer. He sees everything.
He's a very important, very big entertainment lawyer. And I think he thought my lovely wife, who I love so much, he wasn't patronizing. But at that point he went, you've got the screenplay, just do it yourself. You've been on enough sets. You've watched enough of the great directors working. And so that was the biggest leap. At that point, now I'm going to act in it and direct it. And then I really reduced down the part of the mother as much as I could. The thing that, again, I don't know if this happened to you, but the thing that I set out to do became a different path. It then became, you're directing it. The acting part was the least important part. The more important part was getting this thing up and running. And so that's sort of how it happened. In a roundabout, non-planned, I couldn't have dreamed that this would have been the outcome.
And wow, wasn't that amazing? I mean, she has been on sets with the most incredible directors, and you learn from it. And to have that confidence, and to actually have a husband too.
For sure, support somebody who loves you, somebody who supports you through sickness. Because I know you have a really young viewership. Those young girls worship you guys, and they listen to you. And so to them, I'd say, pick somebody who you know is going to be your knight in shining armor when you go through something in life. But also, educate yourself about everything. It's not just about what's my risk, what's my health, it's also look around you. I was on film sets, not just in my own trailer thinking about myself. I would watch what camera they were using, and I'd look at the lens that they'd put on, and I'd look at scripts that worked and scripts that didn't work, so that by the time I sat with my own story from a book and I thought, what will I pick from this to make this an adaptation? I had enough that I'd taken in, I think, from observing.
Wow.
Not a smarty pants who went to the University of Filmmaking or the University of Scriptwriting, but observation. I think we can teach ourselves. Now we've got everything. The internet is there. There's a lot that you can learn by deciding you want to learn.
And how was it being on set? I mean,
I was very, very lucky in that I had a very strong female producer. So there's a pattern here. I did start to see something when I was working, that there's something about women, when women work together in a collective way, when women really support each other, there's a lot of power in that in the numbers like that.
We talk about that all the time.
It really is. There's a kind of there's an alchemy in that. There's something that happens when we really are, because we align in a certain way. It's almost like some lion pride, the pride of the females that stick with the little ones. There's something that we do collectively. And so I had a very strong female producer. The lead was a 7-year-old child who I picked a non-actor because I didn't want a kid that had learned bad habits with acting, and it had to be very realistic. And then I had this incredible South African actress, Black South African actress, who's just like the soul of the film.
The soul
of the movie. So her sort of beautiful spirit and the way that she brought herself to it. And then I had, cleverly, some very strong men around me in areas that I needed them. But I had incredible first AD who ran the show, who was a strong, not a shouting, not a big tough guy, a gentle guy. And he absolutely, it's interesting, that choice, right? Do I want the loud guy or do I want the quiet guy who gets it done? I picked that guy. Strongest AD I've ever worked with. Same thing with my cinematographer. I really picked the person who was talking the same language as me in terms of what I wanted the film to look like. But again, I will say this, I love him. We had a couple of rumbles because he had shot many, many films, and I think he thought, here's this actress that's coming along. She's only ever acted, and I want to shoot things a certain way. And I adored him, and I'm not somebody, again, it's hard for women. We've learned not to advocate for ourselves. It's hard to speak up. And a couple of times I kept seeing the frame, and I said, I need us to go in tighter. And he'd go, we got that on the second camera. And then I'd look, because I had two. I'd be in a scene, then I'd be looking at the things here, the monitors, and go, well, I still want camera one to go in tighter. And there was resistance. And finally one day, in a nice way, but in a strong way, I had to say, I need you to move the camera where I'm asking you to put it, which was my heart was pounding very fast.
You see?
It's not like I felt empowered by doing that. It actually felt very scary to me. And then there was ice in the air for a minute. And again, men who are used to running a set and running a show and doing things the way they want to don't like being told by a strong female. And I went to him afterwards and I said, I love you. I love the work that you're doing. I need you to listen to me from now on, please. And there was a shift. And I saw it in the dailies. I saw the scenes that I picked, and I was right. I'm not a cinematographer, but I knew what I needed to tell the story. So I could never have lit the scenes the way that he did. He's an artist, but I did need to say, wait a second. And I actually had to do the same thing with my editor. And it just is, men have been given, it's different perhaps with this generation. Men have been given, they inherited the kingdom. They got the keys to the kingdom. We weren't given the keys to the kingdom.
To beg for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to invent the kingdom. And then in that kingdom, it took about 10 days before I really spoke up and said, I really need you to listen to me. I had to find the keys, forge the keys, make the mold, create the key, then go, this is the key and I'm holding the key. I need you to do what I'm asking you to do. And you can do it and still be nice.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to be more tough about it as a woman, because they weren't listening until I said, listen, please listen to me.
I think that's so beautiful. And honestly, you have to believe what you want is true, and you have to go after it. And whether it's a girl it's a job, it's a scene, it's a, and it isn't a natural thing for us. You
Yes.
can still lead with kindness, but you still need to lead and you still need to go for what you want. So I just think that's so beautiful. I mean, I just,
Yeah, and listen, it doesn't mean that there's still times where then it's going to go one step beyond that, and you are going to have to. I just read Barry Diller's memoir. I really,
I can't
and
wait to read that.
everybody should read it, only because I sort of saw how this guy is a titan of industry, navigated through life and just got bigger and better. But his North Star, he always said, was Diane
Yeah.
von Furstenberg, and he talks about her instincts, and she has it's a different kind of power. And I think we have to find what are the strengths, what are the best ways of communicating. I certainly didn't communicate that well when I was younger. It's something that I've learned. I'd say I finessed it a lot more over maybe the last 10 years. I think being married helped that a lot, because I have a smart, strong husband who also says, please communicate differently to me. And I did have to learn that.
Yeah.
So we have to learn you can do it a certain way and get what you need, but I had to be open to learning. And I was already 40-something when I was still learning,
And we're still learning.
We're still learning.
My husband still comes into our bathroom and he just takes everything and he pushes it to my side because I'm so messy and he's so not. I mean, and the same thing when we got married, he would say, you can't just make plans. You have to talk to me about it. And I had never had to do that before.
For anybody who doesn't know Mary Alice socially, she is a whirling dervish. She is a person, she is like a tornado that moves through the world. And with it, that's your gift, Mary Alice. You pick up everyone that's in your orbit. And so it's always a party. It's always fun. It's always like a collective of beautiful people around you. But it would be hard if
to
you
live
were
with.
Yes.
Basically, that's what he says too. That whirling dervish is also my bathroom. So he's like, we probably should have gotten separate bathrooms. So I don't know, Embeth, I don't know why this just makes me teary, but it just does. I just am so blessed to know you as a person and just to have seen you do this, and to, again, I'm having so many conversations with women my age, your age, who are just, their children have left the house. They feel like they have no worth. They feel like they have no purpose, and they feel like that there's no way out. And I think when I see you, and I sort of think of the same thing about us, I mean, you there is, and you can do it.
And I think listen, it doesn't have to be a film or a podcast. If you really look at the world around us right now, you can't tell me that there isn't an organization somewhere that aligns with what you believe in, that you can't go and devote yourself to for 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, 5 hours a week. It's hard. People are also working to make a living. But the women that we know might have even too much time on their hands. And I did talk to a therapist in the midst of the dark post-chemo, post-cancer days I said, what am I going to do with the weight of the no hormones? And I didn't really want to go on an antidepressant. I said, so this that sits upon me, what do I do? And he said, studies have shown people who have the best outcomes on depression or mood, people who are feeling challenges in terms of mood, are the people who go and do something outside of themselves. For others, not to get a reward. So again,
purpose.
The crazy thing is, I didn't do this to say, I'm going to go and Sony Picture Classics is going to buy it and they're going to release it. I went to do it because, as I said to my husband at the time, the creative part of me that hadn't worked for so long, I felt like my life depended upon it. I thought the exercise of creating was something I needed to do. So if it's, I'm going to teach myself to do watercolors, or if it's, I'm going to volunteer for such and such organization, it is the act of doing it that rescues you out of it. So you kind of, if you're stuck, I can only say I felt stuck. And if I looked at the mountain and saw the full mountain and thought I've somehow got to write, act in, direct, finance, and produce this film, I wouldn't have done it. But I did say, I'm going to just start writing. I'm going to get this and just start writing. So there must be a first step. You have to find one pearl a day. I remember a meditation teacher teaching me this as well. She said, go in your diary, or if you don't have a diary like I still have an old-fashioned one, and draw the pearl, or in your phone, put the pearl on the date and ask yourself, what is that one thing I'm going to do today that's going to make the world around me a better place, or give myself a perspective on life that I've made a difference to something. What is it? You can do one thing a day. You can.
Is she not the most? I mean,
You're incredible.
it's just and the film
thank you.
is incredible. And I have to say, I grew up in the South. What was so beautiful about to me, and I think everybody's gonna take something different away, but is to see that racism from a child's eyes. And I felt that growing up, and that special, that woman. I mean, it's just.
Yeah,
She's just the heart of this.
yes, and really I don't want to give away the end of the film, but the end of the film is not something that came from the book. The end of the film is I go into sort of some magical realism or something you'd call it at the very end. And that was the one thing that was sort of my love letter to really the women of Africa. I don't know if you know that Trevor Noah has come on as one of our executive producers.
No.
Yes, so Trevor saw the film and he said, I love the message of this film and I want to get behind this film. And so actually Trevor and I are doing a Q&A on July 10th in LA, and then the film opens on July 11th. But Trevor, when he retired from The Tonight Show, it was the most powerful thing that he said. If you want to know something about the world, or you want to know something about suffering, look to the Black woman. Because what we were saying is how privileged our children are. I happen to have kids that have grown up in a very fortunate circumstance, right? But his point of view is raised by a single mother, a mother of color. And he said, if you want to see really someone carry the world on their shoulders, look to the Black woman. She will show you. And so my impression as a child, so the film is set in Zimbabwe, but I arrived in South Africa when I was 8. And I remember those women, for the most part, I don't know what the statistics are, they raise children on their own. They don't have the support system of a husband or the finances to help run a family and keep a roof over a child's head. And I think the thing that you talk about, Mary Alice, is that it's the part of the imagination and the part of our blank and innocent canvas as children that is so open, that was so horrified by what I saw. Mm-hmm. And so that stuck with me. And that was the thing that I felt compelled to talk about, because it wasn't exorcised out of me yet. Yeah. It was still in me from when I was a kid.
And it still exists,
for sure,
in so many different ways currently. Well, it comes out July 11th, and Sony Pictures Classic picked it up. So everybody run, do not walk to go see Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. Opens in New York and LA July 11th.
Can't wait to see it.
It's the most beautiful, magical. It really is. And it's even the way you speak, the way you present yourself, that's how the film feels. It's just this gorgeous, elegant, amazing, not always easy to watch.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But I just am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today on SheMD.
If you want to own your own health, a good place to start is by following us on social media at SheMD Podcast and by subscribing to our show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
For takeaways from today's episode, visit our website, shemdpodcast.com. We'll see you next time on SheMD. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician's medical advice. You should regularly consult your medical provider in matters relating to your own health. Even though we share our honest beliefs on SheMD, some of the products and services we discuss may involve sponsorships or paid advertising.